So, a warm welcome to all the devotees for our continued discussion on the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. Today, we are reading from the 15th chapter entitled The Pandavas Retire Timely. Okay, so now things are going to very quickly accelerate in this portion of the Bhagavatam to get to the point where the central character, of course, the main character of the Bhagavatam is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. He is the substance, soul, center point, everything. He is the, he's the cause for the Bhagavatam to be spoken. He is the object of the Bhagavatam. But one of the main central character, pivotal characters of the Bhagavatam is Maharaj Parikshit. So we have discussed already how Maharaj Parikshit appeared, and today we will be continuing the discussion on how how the if you recall, last time we were discussing that when Arjuna, we discussed how Arjuna had gone to Dwarka because they were aware that Kunti had cursed that after 36 years everything will be destroyed, you Yadus will kill each other. So therefore, she was, Arjuna went to Dwarka to see Krishna one last time and bring him here. And we had discussed how Yudhishthir, in the absence of Arjuna, he's seeing a lot of ill omens. He's seeing the onset of the symptoms of Kali Yuga, and he guesses that maybe Krishna has already left the planet. And then when Arjuna returns, while he's talking like this with Bhima, when Arjuna returns, at that time he sees that his face luster is gone. He asks him various questions: has this happened, has that happened? But he avoids direct questions about the Lord's departure. He knows that this is very likely because he's already said it, that maybe he has left because the symptoms of Kali Yuga have appeared. But he is afraid to ask, he doesn't want to confirm his worst fears, and therefore he doesn't ask. And then final last verse of last chapter we read, where he asked directly that has the Supreme Lord left, has Krishna left? And then today we continue from there, where Arjuna confirms his worst fears, and then what happens after that, right? So this section, this chapter of the Bhagavatam is very powerful. We should read the purports that Srila Prabhupada writes. Extremely hard hitting, but very, very practical, very powerful purports. The very essence of our lives, what lives we live, what futile efforts we put to try to accumulate assets, accumulate wealth, accumulate fame, degrees, relatives, friends, so many things. We put so much effort. So ultimately, it's we have to understand this is illusory. It is not something that's going to go with us. It's temporary. We're all going to leave our bodies. So this chapter teaches us to some extent that not to some extent, to a very large extent, that what should be the consciousness of a person, who has dedicated his or her life in the service of Krishna. When they get the signal that okay, time is over, what is the response, right? So this is very, very instructive, this chapter. I don't know how much, whether we'll be able to complete it or not, but because there are a lot of stories inside this chapter. The one verse is there, but each of them is a story. I don't know if we'll have time to cover that, but let us make an attempt. So this chapter starts with Arjuna, first thing, he is stricken, right, because of his separation from Krishna. So his heart had dried up. It says that his mouth and heart had dried up, and we can experience this. These are real symptoms when someone is very, very grief stricken. It happened to me a few days back. One of my dear friends, again from ISKCON, His Grace Sridhar Krishna Prabhu, he was maybe a few years elder than me, like an elder brother, very, very dear friend. We have, when I went to Singapore, I have stayed at his place. a couple of times. So very dear friend. He left. When he left, and I saw the news, I was not even, I came into the room, I was crying, and I couldn't tell Priyasaki what happened. She was asking, "What happened? Why are you crying?" And I was not able to tell because my mouth had dried up. Because when someone dear to you leaves, it is very painful. Now imagine if someone, and we'll understand as we go through this chapter, how close Arjuna was to Krishna. How close. We cannot even imagine the intimacy that was there between Krishna and the Pandavas. We cannot even imagine. And out of those, Arjuna was the closest of all the Pandavas. So it is a very unimaginable closeness that Arjuna had with Krishna. And then if Krishna has left, is unable to even tolerate it. So he's saying that now, remembering the Supreme Lord, he could hardly utter a word in reply. With great difficulty, he smeared the tears of grief. With great difficulty, he checked the tears that smeared his eyes. And remembering Krishna and his well wishes, benedictions, benefactions, intimate familial relationship, and his chariot driving, Arjuna, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak. So now Arjuna is remembering all the different ways in which he was connected with Krishna, right? So we can see over here that Arjuna, he's remembering the Lord. So this whole section from text 4, text 5 to 17, this is about Arjuna remembering Krishna and his very intimate relationship with Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada in this verse, purport, he talks about the fact that how Arjuna, he was not just a friend, he was a relative. First of all, from his mother's side, he was related to Krishna directly. They were like cousins. Okay, so that was one connection. Then, as over a period of time, they got to know. Arjuna met with Krishna. They became friends also, because they were similar age group, so they became friends. And then he also became an intimate family member because Krishna got Subhadra married to Arjun. So he became like brother-in-law also. So Srila Prabhupada says that so many ways Arjuna was connected with Krishna. And then he says chariot driving. Krishna also was connected with Arjuna as Partha Sarathi. He became the driver, the menial driver of Arjuna. He has also acted as the messenger of Arjuna and Yudhishthir, giving the peace message to the Kurus who refused to accept it. Described in the Srimad Bhagavatam very briefly, but in the Mahabharata in great detail it is given that how Krishna was actually acting as the messenger of peace, but was not accepted. So many ways Krishna has been connected with Arjuna. If we have little bit of connection with somebody, we feel pain. Now imagine, though he is the Supreme Lord, all attractive personality of Godhead, very compassionate, very loving, and he's related in so many different ways. So how much pain Arjuna must be feeling? So he says, first in text 5, Arjuna says, "O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus, my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me." So, now this is the first time that Arjuna actually says that, my dear brother, O King Yudhishthir, the Supreme Lord Hari, who treated me like an intimate friend, has left. He has left this world. So, it is a devastating news always when we speak about someone leaving. It is very devastating, especially if the person who's listening is equally connected. See, it's very relative. This material world is very, very relative. It is like on WhatsApp. When this Sridhar Krishna Prabhu passed away, on WhatsApp, it was sent on our one of our groups that so and so Sridhar Krishna Prabhu has left, and a lot of people may not know him by name; they will know him by face. So when the name was sent, when the message was sent, uh, those who know him may not know his name, but they saw the picture, immediately they were able to connect. Arey, I know this devotee. He was such a wonderful devotee. I used to meet him in yatras. I used to meet him here. I met him there. I met him here. He was so hospitable. He was so sweet. Immediately people were able to connect. But people who don't know him, for them, it is like, okay, okay, great devotee has passed. Hare Krishna. We will pray for him. Like that. Uh, but for those who know him, just by the name itself, so many things come out straight away. Immediately, you're able to remember so many things. And for those who are intimately connected with him, who had deep friendship with him, for them, just the thought that he is going to leave the body, the message came to me from a friend, another friend, common friend, that he's critical. But then, he said, please pray. So I immediately, I started chanting, for this devotee, because he was very dear friend. And then then I informed Vishnu Prabhu, Bhaktivedanta, because he was admitted in Bhaktivedanta hospital. So I told Vishnu Prabhu that so and so devotee, wonderful devotee, is a god brother, and he is, so can you just see what is going on? Then few minutes later, Vishnu Prabhu messaged me that he already passed away, and I was like, oh God, very painful. So now imagine when Yudhishthir, when he hears from Arjuna, right? He is also equally intimately connected with Krishna. I mean, each of these members of the Pandavas have their own personal dealings with Krishna. So it is very, very painful when they hear that Krishna has left. And in the second part of this verse, Arjuna is saying that because the Lord, who he was like an intimate friend, he left. He said, "Thus my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me." So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada uses some very powerful words. So let's just go through that. He says, "The power and energy which were bestowed upon Arjuna were required for the fulfillment of the mission of the Lord. But when his mission was fulfilled, the emergency powers were withdrawn from Arjuna. Because, okay, so very interesting over here. Srila Prabhupada is saying that these astounding powers that Arjuna had extraordinary powers, right? And right from his childhood, he had some of these powers. So you have to understand that this is not an ordinary soul. No, to get those kind of powers in this world, to have that kind of powers, you have to be some kind of a special soul. Now, Arjuna from his very childhood was very special. And he had such powers that, with his powers, he was able to, even the demigods were astonished when they saw his powers. When the 12 years of exile were going on, Arjuna actually went to the heavenly planets in his self-same body. Just to do that is something extraordinary. As Prabhupada talks about in the latter part of the chapter, it's extraordinary to go to the heavenly planets in the same body. He went. And after going there, he fought battles for the devatas with the demons. So now you can see how time, place, everything is very relative. Because on the earthly planet, what is going on? Well, the Kurus are ruling, the Kauravas are ruling, and there doesn't seem to be any battle going on. But there in the heavenly planet, which is in a different realm, different physical, geophysical realm, a different time zone, there a battle is going on with some demons, and Arjuna fights in that battle and he defeats that demon, kills that demon. So, for us who are sometimes bewildered, ki, Are, ye kya hai? Here it is mentioned that so much time went and someone lived for so many hundreds and thousands of years. We get bewildered. We have to understand that these are different time zones. They are different realms. Okay. So like this, they were bewildered. And he says like this astonishing power that Arjuna had was specifically given by Krishna to him. For what? Because the Lord's mission was to be fulfilled. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati Whenever this dharma, there is a glani, then the Lord descends. And along with him descend who? All his intimate, so the Lord comes for two purposes. Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkitam. So there is one set of associates that come along with him for the vinashaya cha dushkitam, who come to destroy everything, because whoever are the demoniac forces to destroy them, the Lord incarnates along with his associates. So Arjuna and all these were amongst that. And then Paritranaya sadhunam, that for the deliverance of the devotees, he comes himself personally, right? And there also he comes along with the associates. So from his associates in the spiritual world, they all come along with him. So you have to understand that when the Lord descends in this material world, when he comes here, he is coming here for a purpose. And once that purpose is fulfilled, tuck, 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 everything winds up very quickly. Right? So this is what has happened over here. So Arjuna says that my astonishing power is removed, is gone. So we'll see in the subsequent verses how that happened. So Prabhupada is saying the emergency powers were withdrawn from Arjuna because the astounding powers of Arjuna, which were astonishing even to the denizens of heaven, were no longer required. Dharma had been established. Yudhishthira was established as a king. All this extraordinary power of Arjuna was no longer needed, right? And very important, Prabhupada says, just look at the words Prabhupada chooses. He says, they were not meant for going back home, back to Godhead. This power that Arjuna had of shooting hundreds of arrows in one go and killing so many people, for going back to Godhead, this is not needed. This is a different set of skills needed, a different set of powers, different set of attributes are needed for one to go back to Godhead. If you are intoxicated with the power that you have, that I can shoot arrows by Shabda Bhedi arrows, I can shoot arrows in all directions at the same time, I can I can do this, I can do. If you are so intoxicated with all these strengths and powers that the Lord has given you, then where is your interest in going back to Godhead? May not be there. So therefore the Lord withdrew it, right? And then Prabhupada says, if now everyone listen carefully to this. This is very important. What Prabhupada is saying here, this is all for all of us. He says, if endowment of powers and withdrawal of powers by the Lord are possible even for a great devotee like Arjuna or even the demigods in heaven, then what to speak of ordinary living beings who are but figs compared to such great souls? So compared to Arjuna, who are we? हम कौन है भाई? We are nobody. We have no powers. We have no good qualities. Devotionally, we are like ऐसा हम लोग nursery play school में हैं हम लोग. We are so junior. We are so filled with anarthas. But still we feel we are something great. हमें लगता है कि यार नहीं, मैं तो senior devotee हूँ यार, मैं तो I've spent half my life in Krishna consciousness. I am some great diggaj. We are fools if we think like that. We are nobody. Prabhupada is saying here, understand, we are figs compared to such great souls. He says, the lesson therefore, that lesson is therefore, no one should be puffed up for his powers which are borrowed from the Lord. In the subsequent purpose also Prabhupada says, don't be proud of borrowed plumes, right? You've borrowed feathers from some other person. We should not be proud of it, right? So he says, the sane man, okay, the sane man. Who is the sane man? The person, hopefully all of us over here, whatever 43 of us are, sane people, right? We should rather feel obliged to the Lord for such benefactions. Whatever powers the Lord has given us, whatever vibhuti, yad vibhuti mat sattvam, Krishna says in the Gita, that whatever vibhuti, whatever opulence one sees in somebody, someone is beautiful, someone is knowledgeable, someone is powerful, someone is wealthy, someone is famous, someone is has a power of speech, someone has the power of hearing, someone has great memory. Whatever powers we may have, right, we should understand these powers should be utilized for the service of the Lord. whatever you have, whatever, whatever, yad karoshi, yad ashnachi, yad juhoshi, dadasi yad, yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tad kurusva madarpanam. Krishna is saying, utilize whatever you have, whatever vibhuti Krishna has given you, we should utilize it in the service of Krishna. Utilize in the service of God, Prabhupada is saying. Because such power can be withdrawn at any time by the Lord. कभी भी ये power to speak चला जाएगा, कभी भी ये power to manage big teams ये चला जाएगा. This power to hold, hold an audience चला जाएगा. This power to, to build big empires, to build big companies, startups. Hey, I'm a multiple startup founder. What do they say? Serial entrepreneur. I am a serial entrepreneur. मतलब मैंने इतने सारे कंपनी खड़े किए हैं. मैं कोई तोप हूँ, right? Great. You may be a top, but understand that topness is also coming from Krishna. That power, that opulence, that amazing capability that you have of, picking up a business idea and creating it into a business, that is coming from Krishna, and it is going to be taken away by influence of time. Gurujan Prabhu in his purports, what powerful, he speaks so nicely. He says that we should understand sooner or later, aaj nahi to kal, these things are going to be taken away from us, right? He says that better you realize it now, otherwise cruel death will come and take everything away. Mrityu sarva haras chaham, Krishna says, everything will be taken away by death. Sometimes Prabhupada says, in the purport, he says, in another purports, he says that, sorry, I'm digressing, but it's powerful, so I'm just talking about it. Prabhupada says that we sometimes feel that everything, with our strength, मैंने अपने शक्ति से, मैंने अपने क्या बोलते हैं, with my tapasya, with my hard work, with my discipline, with my honesty and my intelligence, I have built this. Yeah, I'm a self-made man, right? We are very proud of this. And he says that, sometimes people feel that their life is very good. I've got a good wife, I've got a good family, I've got a good house, good bank balance, my life is very good. Prabhupada says in 1 second that can change. He says that sometimes husband and wife, some disagreement, some dispute, and they get divorced. He says with that divorce, man loses everything, right? It's very powerful words he uses. He says, please read these purports. This chapter, each purport is just gold. Please read it if you can. It's very nice. Prabhupada says he loses his wife, okay, his companion for so many years. He loses his wife. He loses his wealth. He loses his friends. That all the friends who are connected with the wife, common friends, all gone. Even some of his own friends also leave him because he feels that teri galti, tune galti karna nahi chahiye tha. You shouldn't have left her. So everything gets lost. And then the man is still hopeful. He still has wealth. So he's still hopeful. He thinks, I'll find another partner and I'll still enjoy. He doesn't see that this is Krishna's arrangement. This is Krishna's arrangement that, Baba, you have been enjoying a lot. Here is one of the kicks of nature that is coming to you. Accept it. Surrender now. Surrender to Krishna. We still want to enjoy. We still look for enjoyment. Even as devotees, we don't leave our propensity for enjoyment. Yes, our enjoyment may be in a different way. We try to eat good prasad and we try to gratify our senses by eating good prasad. We understand that Prabhupada says that at some age we should realize that, Baba, ye sense gratification chhod do abhi. Leave it. because this is not going to go away. Sense objects are always going to be there. Your mind is always going to tell you, Baba, enjoy. ये बाद में करो, ये सब भक्ति ये सब austerity, ये chanting extra, ये surrendering to Krishna, ये सब बाद में करो यार. ये अभी is not practical to do this now. Do it later. Just before I die, I will surrender to Krishna. Just at that moment, somehow, for every day when there is a moment for me to surrender, all of us, this applies to every single one of us on this call, right? At every moment, right at this moment, We have the opportunity to surrender 100% to Krishna. We have it. But we don't choose to do it. We choose not to do it. हम बोलते नहीं, अभी नहीं, बाद में करेंगे. ये लेक्चर हो जाने दो, फिर करेंगे. ये कल का मेरा जपा हो जाने दो, फिर मैं करूंगा. कल का मेरे बच्चे बड़े हो जाने दो, फिर मैं करूंगा. मेरा बिजनेस सेट हो जाने दो, फिर मैं करूंगा. Let my children get married, then I will do it. Let them have. एक बार पोता पोती का मुंह देख लिया तो बस उसके बाद हरि के शरण में जाएंगे. अरे पोता पोती का चेहरा देखने के पहले यमराज का चेहरा देखना पड़े तो क्या करें? Why should we postpone? Why should we postpone our surrender? Don't postpone. Live your life with full enthusiasm. करो सब कुछ जो करना है. You have to serve your family, you have to serve society, you have to serve your employees, you have to serve your bosses, you have to serve everyone. Do it full enthusiasm के साथ करो. But be clear, at any moment time can snatch everything away from you. So very powerful. Prabhupada is saying such power can be withdrawn at any time by the Lord. So the best use of such power and opulence is what? Is to engage them in the service of the Lord. So then Arjuna says, I have just lost him, right? So he says, then he starts speaking about, he says that what were all the benefactions or benedictions that Krishna gave to him. One by one now he starts recalling, starts recounting. So this is, the hand of Krishna in the life of Arjuna, right? Sometimes we talk about this, that we should be able to see the hand of God in everything that we do. We actually, if you analyze, I have actually given one lecture on this once, that seeing the hand of Krishna in everything. If we analyze, really look back into our lives, most of us, many of us who are on this call, most of us are in our 40s, some are in 30s, some are in 50s, 60s, 70s also, right? So if we look back on our life and see the mode, the turnings that we have had, various diversions, various accidents and various incidents we have had in our life. If we analyze carefully, we will see the hand of Krishna, that this is Krishna intervening in our life, especially after we became devotees. Before we become devotee, Krishna doesn't intervene. After we take to the process of Krishna consciousness, we try to surrender to Krishna, then slowly but surely, by and by, we can see Krishna's hand. So Arjuna is remembering. Arjuna is saying, only by his merciful strength I was able to vanquish all the lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupada. With my bow and arrow, I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Draupadi. So Arjuna is saying that now, see, one by one, he is trying to remember how Krishna intervened. See, क्या होता है व्यक्ति को जब वो इंसिडेंट हो रहा होता है, when the incident is happening, sometimes we are not Krishna conscious, because we're just in the heat of the moment. Adrenaline is pumping, something is happening, and we are like fully focused on getting the job done. That's okay. But to come to that point where moment something happens, immediately, oh Krishna, immediately taking shelter of Krishna is an exalted state in some sense, right? But here Arjuna is now analyzing. He says the task that was set was next to impossible. Many people in the assembly tried. Many lusty princes had assembled there to win the hand of Draupadi. Many tried. No one was able to succeed. Only one person, Karna, was able to succeed. He had the ability to succeed. But Krishna, Draupadi looked at Krishna, and Krishna was like, no. And then immediately Draupadi, because Draupadi knew that Karna is also a very powerful archer. He's capable of meeting this condition. But she looked at Krishna for approval, and Krishna said no. Right? No explanation is given, but this is what happened. Right? And that's it. she said that no, I will not marry him. He's the son of Ishudra. I'm not going to marry him. So therefore, then Karna had to sit down, and then Arjuna came, and Arjuna, he strung the bow, and he was able to shoot the arrow. And what a task, right? It is an unbelievable task. You have to understand that there was a pot of water, there was a wheel rotating, and wheels have वो चक्का रहता है ना उसका, spokes रहता है उसका. There's a wheel rotating upstairs. There is a fish tied to that wheel which is rotating at full speed, and you have to shoot the eye of that fish, and that too not looking at it, looking at the reflection. It is so difficult doing anything looking at a reflection. It is very tough. Try it. Something that is moving, try to catch it by looking at a reflection. If somebody tosses you something, suppose someone throws something at you, take this, and you try to catch it, try catching at it, looking in the reflection. It's impossible. You'll not be able to do it, because you'll reach with your right hand if you're a righty, but in the mirror you're seeing the left hand and you get bewildered. But Arjuna, perfectly looking at the reflection in the water, shaky water, he was able to shoot a fast moving, wheel ka beech ka chakka nahi tha. He hit the arrow at this thing, and the fish was beyond the wheel. He shot the arrow through the wheel into the eye of the thing, and he won Draupadi. And then after winning her, the other princes attacked, and Karna also attacked. But Arjuna was able to defeat. So now he's remembering. Ek karke he's remembering that, yeah, this was Krishna's hand. Then he says, because he was near me, I was able to defeat the king of heaven. He discusses about, Prabhupada describes in the purport the story of Maya Danav of, who was in the Khandav forest. So Khandav forest, Agni said, Agni Dev appeared before Arjuna and Krishna and said that, I have received too much ghee. So I need to now burn something. Tell me some place that I can burn. So, Arjuna suggests that burn this Khanda forest. So when he's burning the Khanda forest, Maya Danav is hiding in that forest. So when he comes out of the forest, Krishna immediately lifts his Sudarshan to kill him. But then Maya Danav is very intelligent. He comes and takes shelter of Arjun. He sees Arjun is devotee of Krishna. So he takes shelter of Arjun. And then when he takes shelter of Arjun, then Krishna can't kill him. Sudarshan can't kill him. Rakhe Krishna, mare Krishna, rakhe ke. If the devotee of the Lord wants to protect a devotee, protect somebody, even Krishna doesn't kill him, right? So like that, that pastime he remembers, and he says that this Maya Dana whom I saved, by his arrangement, so he, Maya is so grateful to Arjun for saving his life. He says that, tell me how I can serve you. So now Arjun is a Kshatriya. He says, I saved your life and you are asking me what? I am not here to do business, right? I am happy. I was able to serve you. Good. You can go now. Done. But Krishna says no. Let him build, and he's a master architect for the demons. So let him build the the assembly hall of Indraprastha. So it is Maya Dana. So see the arrangement, how things, the jigsaw puzzle of the Mahabharata, how everything falls into place. Maya Dana, if he had been burnt to death in that forest, then this assembly hall of Indraprastha would not have been created, right? Or if it had been killed by Krishna, it wouldn't have been created. Because it was created, Duryodhan got bewildered there. He fell into the water. He thought Draupadi is saying that Andhe ka beta andha, and he got very angry by that, and that's how the whole story then builds up from there. This is one insignificant incident in the Mahabharata. Just see how things lead. One thing leads to another. It's brilliant. Mahabharata and Bhagavatam are just such a pleasure to read. It is, other than the fact that, it is purifying, it is also pleasure to read, right? So like this happened. So he's expressing gratitude that because of Krishna's arrangement, this happened. Then he talks about your respectable younger brother, Bhima. He says, Bhima, he killed Jarasandha. So Prabhupada in the purport, he tells the story of Jarasandha, that how Jarasandha was, he was actually born because his father was actually not getting a son. Then he did penance, and one rishi appeared before him, gave him a mango. He said that give this mango to your wives and you will have a child. He had two wives. So he gave the mango, they ate the mango, and then they gave birth to a child which was half, half child. Each of them gave birth to half child. And it was so ghastly to see. They just got rid of the child. They threw the two, halves into the forest, and they came back. And then this demoness called Jara, she saw these two halves and she thought, "Arey, young flesh, let me eat," And she picked up to eat, and just out of curiosity, she saw two halves of a child. Sort of curiosity, she joined. Moment she joined, that became a whole child, and the child came to life. And she was very surprised. "Arey, ye kya hai?" So then she knew who it is. So she went back to the king and she said that here is your son now, fully. So the king was very pleased. He said, "What can I do for you?" So she said that, no, I don't want you to do anything, but you name him after me. So that's why he was named Jara Sandha. Sandha means joined. The one who was joined by Jara Sandha. So Jara Sandha was joined by her. And now this story comes back later, right? So again, Arjuna is remembering that this Jara Sandha was invincible. He was so powerful. He was a devotee of Lord Shiva. And he had defeated so many kings, and he was going to do a Mahayagya where he was going to sacrifice human bodies. All these kings he was going to sacrifice so that he could become invincible. So a complete demon, right? Jarasandha. And the same Jarasandha had attacked Krishna 17 times, Mathura. 17 times he had attacked. All 17 times Krishna defeated Jarasandha, defeated his entire army, but didn't kill Jarasandha. Just see how these stories, how they come together, right? Very fascinating. He didn't kill Jarasandha. He could have, but he didn't. He knows how to kill him, but he didn't kill him. Because what is one of the purposes of Krishna? Vinashaya cha dushkritam. So all demoniac forces on the earth had to be removed. Jarasandha would be defeated. He would go back with insult. कि मैं मर जाता तो अच्छा था. And then someone would console him. नहीं, तुम मरे नहीं. It is very important. You have one more chance. फिर से जाके attack करो. He would again collect so many Akshayanis and again go and attack Krishna. And again he would be defeated. So hundreds and thousands and crores of, demons were being killed like this. So this Jarasandha, he was going to do this yagya. So then Krishna took Arjuna and Bhima with him. And Bhima was fighting with him for several days. That it is described in the Mahabharata again, that when they came in front of Jarasandha, at that time, he sees them and he says, they ask for charity. So we have come for charity. They say, "Oh, you are Brahmanas, you want charity?" They have gone disguised as Brahmanas. "You want charity? Okay." He says, "Tumhe dekh ke to lagta nahi hai tum Brahman ho. Clearly you are not Brahmanas. So tell me who you are." So he said, "I am," Krishna says, "I am Krishna. This is Bhima. This is Arjuna." "Oh, acha, okay. Batao bhai, kya charity chahiye?" So he says, "We want to fight with you." "So you want to fight with me? Malla Yudh?" "Oh, done." He says, "This Krishna is so cheater hai wo, bhagoda hai wo. मैं उनसे तो लड़ाई करूंगा ही नहीं. He's run chhod. I'm not. It's beneath my dignity to fight with. He has fought with Krishna 17 times and he's been defeated, but still he makes ऐसा Kshatriya का dialogue, कि I am not going to fight with him. He's useless. But this Arjuna is too puny for me, but मतलब बहुत हल्का है मेरे लिए. I will fight with this guy Bhima. He's good. And then he fights with Bhima. And then for a long time the fight goes on and Bhima is unable to defeat him. And then finally Krishna gives him the hint. He takes a twig, breaks into half and throws it. Then he understands, okay, this is what I have to do. So he takes Jarasandha, tears him into two halves and throws the two sides away. And that's how Jarasandha is killed. So now Arjuna is remembering that how by Krishna's mercy only this Jarasandha was killed. Because Jarasandha was one of the most powerful kings and he was the क्या बोलते हैं रस्ते का रोड़ा on the Rajasuya sacrifice. The Rajasuya sacrifice, all kings need to accept Yudhishthir as emperor. And this person is doing this yagya to become invincible. So at the right time, Krishna appears and takes Bhima and Arjuna there and ensures that he's killed, so that the Rajasuya yagya can progress without any any obstacle. So see, again he's remembering, oh, this is Krishna's arrangement, this is Krishna's hand. It was he only who loosened the hair of all wives of the miscreants. So he speaks, now he's remembering about Draupadi. He says, Draupadi, he's saying that Draupadi was insulted. She was pulled into the assembly. They tried to disrobe her in front of all the Kurus, right? He says, because she was, her hair, which was sanctified in the Rajasuya Yagya, because it was opened by this Dushasan, same way the wives of all these miscreants, their hair was opened by Krishna's arrangement, right? So Krishna saved her. He saved Draupadi at that time also. And then he also swore that, oh Draupadi, the people who have done this to you, their wives will be, lamenting for their husbands very soon. Right? So he said that. So Krishna's word always comes true. So then he remembers another pastime. He says, during our exile, Durvasa Muni, so he remembers the pastime of Durvasa, that Duryodhan, he knew that this Durvasa is incarnation of Lord Shiva. So he's easily pleased and easily angered also. So therefore he made a Shadayantra. He made a plan that how Durvasa should go to meet these Pandavas and he should curse them in anger. So first he feeds Durvasa sumptuously, serves him very nicely, and Durvasa is so pleased. He said, I want to give you a benediction. Mango kuch. He says, no, sir, I am so pleased by just by serving you. That is my only pleasure. But if at all you want to, I want that you give this same opportunity for service to my brother Yudhishthir, who is in the forest currently. But you go at this time. Ye time ko jao. Right? So he knows that at what time, he knows that Draupadi has this Akshay Patra, which can serve unlimited food. Even in the forest, Akshay Patra is feeding all five Pandavas and Draupadi and Kunti. Draupadi and the five Pandavas, and it is also feeding the hundreds of Brahmanas who have gone along with the Pandavas. They are all sumptuously fed. But after Draupadi eats, then the Akshay Patra stops producing food. So he knows that timeline. So he says, go at that time and you request for prasad. So he goes, Durvasa goes, he meets Yudhishthir and he says that, yeah, I've come here to take prasad. Yudhishthir says, oh, wonderful, you have come to take prasad. Just you take bath and come back. It is your noon time ka, aapka jo ye hai, aap jaake aao. You go and come back, we will organize for prasad. And then he comes before Draupadi and says, ab kya kare? What to do? And Draupadi is overwhelmed. What can I do? So they start intensely praying to Krishna, right? And immediately in the middle of the forest, Krishna comes there. See, this is the Supreme Lord. If a devotee genuinely desires to associate, to be with Krishna, to be in his association, genuinely from the bottom of his heart, Krishna manifests. He can manifest himself. He manifests as a deity. He manifests as the holy name. He manifests as prasad. He can manifest as Bhagavatam. He can manifest in any which way. He's the Supreme Lord. Unko kya takleef hai? He manifested 1 second in the womb of Uttara to save Parikshit. Not very difficult for the Lord. He manifested there, and then he tells Draupadi, I'm very hungry, yaar. Kuch hai kya? Give me something to eat. And Draupadi, this is the last straw. She's just like Prabhupada says, like a woman's heart, She is already under so much pressure that, or if 10,000 disciples of Durvasa have come, they have to feed them, to come back any moment. And now you also, my Lord, you are also asking for prasad and I can't give you anything. And she starts crying. And Krishna says, relax. Just bring the Akshay Patra. Kuch to hoga. Ek dana kuch to hoga. He sees one small leaf there of the vegetable. He takes that and he eats it. And the moment he eats it, all Durvasa's 10,000 disciples and Durvasa himself, they give out one loud, one big belch they give out. They feel so full up to their necks. They start looking at each other. They feel that, I don't think I can eat, Baba. Main to prasad nahi le sakta. What about you? I'm also full. They all look at Durvasa, and Durvasa also understands that no, there's no way we can eat now. And Krishna sends Bhima, you go with your mace and bring them. Jaake leke aao unko. And Duryodhana and Bhima has full faith in Krishna. See, this is the faith of a pure devotee. They have full faith that if Krishna has come here out of the blue in the middle of a forest, suddenly he just appeared. If he is saying, matlab, ho gaya. If Bhima goes with his mace and says, "Bhai, aap log aa kyun nahi rahe ho?" And they just vanish from that spot, right? And there in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that again. Now Arjuna is remembering the mercy of Krishna that he appeared, and ye jo horrible situation, that's such a horrible situation, right? They could have been cursed by Durvasa. Durvasa has a history of cursing in anger, so he could have been cursed. He says, yeah, what is that? Which is the verse one minute? Where is the verse one? Yeah, during our exile, Durvasa, intrigued with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. This dangerous trouble was saved. And Prabhupada in this purport, very nice, he says, the incident of Durvasa proves that Krishna is the greatest mystic. Right? What kind of mystic power? That he eats and exactly everyone is satisfied. Everyone is satisfied, right? Let's just read the purport. Very beautiful. Prabhupada says, I don't think we'll be able to complete today, but I'll try still. Yeah. So Prabhupada says, this incident proves that the Lord is the greatest mystic, and therefore he is known as Yogeshwara. Another instruction is that every householder must offer food to the Lord, and the result will be that everyone, even in the company of guests numbering 10,000, will be satisfied because of the Lord's being satisfied. That is the way of devotional service. So very nice, sweet words Prabhupada writes in the purport. So we have to understand that the Supreme Lord Krishna, what he does is inconceivable. Janma karma cha me divyam, transcendental. We can't understand. Just by one leaf he ate, and exactly those 10,001 people, Durvasa and his 10,000 disciples, they are completely they are satisfied. Right? This is the inconceivable energy of the Lord, that he can do anything. Right? So understand from this. Then in verse 16, then he speaks about, yeah, that I was able to fight with Lord Shiva. Then he speaks about that incident that King Indradev took shelter of my arms, which are marked with the Gandiva bow, to kill the demon named Nivata Kavacha, right? So he's remembering all this. Then he says the military strength of the Kauravas, which was like an ocean, right? In which dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. So he remembers that this battle of Kurukshetra is like an ocean, right? You can imagine there were 7 Akshoni on this side, there were 11 Akshoni on the other side, crores of people. So this ocean of warriors all arrayed there to fight against me and to kill me. I was able to defeat them by the grace of the Lord. Right? It says it was he only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone, and who in the battlefield withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Salya. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate. But he, Lord Shri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. That means he is realizing that Krishna is the doer. Prakrite, in the Gita, Arjuna says, Prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. That bewildered by material nature, we think we are the doers. We are not the doers. Everything is happening by the will of the Supreme Lord. Our desire is there, but if the Lord's his permission is not there, nothing happens. Material nature will not cooperate, and that is what we're going to see, right, in the subsequent verses. He says, great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bhurishrava, Shusharma, Shalya, Jayadratha, Bhalika all directed their invincible weapons against me, but by his grace they could not even touch a hair on my head. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, the supreme devotee of Lord Narsimhadev, was unaffected by the weapons the demons used against him. So here he's saying that all these unbelievable Adhirati, Maharathi, all these great warriors, they were fighting against me. Still, I was protected also. As they say, mera ek baal baaka nahi ho paya, right? Not even one hair was not touched. The only warrior was able to at least make some was Karna was able to remove the crown of Arjuna for a few seconds. That's it. Other than that, nobody was able to harm him in any way. He was saved. So there is a story, in fact, in the Mahabharata after the war is over. So this is a bona fide story. Even I felt that this is just some fake story, but it's a bona fide story. It's there in the Mahabharata, where after the war was over, everything was over. Sabka maar peet sab ho gaya. After that, Arjuna, Krishna and Arjuna are on the chariot. So Krishna tells Arjuna, "You get down first." He says, "No, you get down first." He says, "No, you get down first. You get down and move a little distance away from the chariot." So Arjuna is wondering, "Ki, aisa kyun bol rahe? Why he's saying like this?" So, but Krishna has said, so he obeys. He gets down and goes a little distance from the chariot, and then Krishna, he gets down from the chariot. The moment the Lord gets down from the chariot catches fire and it is burnt to ashes in seconds. Immediately it just kind of explodes, and Arjuna is bewildered. Ye kya chamatkar hai, right? And he understands. Krishna explains that this chariot should have been destroyed long back. The kind of divya astras that were thrown at this chariot, that were aimed at you, they all were, मैंने उनको chariot की तरफ ये किया, they all hit the chariot, and the chariot should have been destroyed. But I was keeping this chariot, by my yogic potency, I was keeping it alive, intact. And the moment he got down from the chariot, the Lord's protection went. Immediately that chariot just blew up, right? So again, he's remembering that these great Rathis, Adhirathis, Rathis, Maharathis, they were shooting arrow after arrow, Divyastra at me, but nothing happened to me. I was saved, right? So like this. And then in the 15.17, he's saying one more beautiful pastime. He says, it was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. So this is a very transcendental, amusing, but yet amazing pastime in the Mahabharata, where at some point, Krishna and Arjuna, heat of the battle, Zabardast battle is going on. Arjuna is shooting arrows, people are shooting arrows at him. And at that time, Krishna tells Arjuna, I think we should take a break. So Arjuna is like, should take a break? How can we take a break? Abhi ladai chal rahi hai. He says, no, the horses are tired. We should take a break. So Arjuna is like, how will take a break, oh Lord? He says, it's okay. You just stop. I'm just stopping the horse. So he stops the horses. Arjuna gets down from the chariot. Krishna gets down from the chariot. Krishna tells him, they are thirsty. Horses are thirsty. Kuch pani ka prabandh karo. Arjuna shoots an arrow into the ground, and immediately on the spot, he shoots, water source. Water comes out. The horses drink water to the heart's content. In the meantime, Krishna is, horses go. He's very nicely. See how personal, Supreme Lord, though he's a Supreme Lord, but he's acting as Partha Sarathi. Therefore, he's taking care of the horses. Very lovingly, he's taking care of the horses. They're tired. So unko aisa ye kar rahe, pani pila rahe, ye kar rahe. And in the meantime, battle is going on. Battle is going on at full pace. And yahan pe, as though kuch hui nahi raha, everything has come to a standstill. And Arjuna is remembering that in the middle of the battle, mere pe ek arrow bhi nahi chala, nothing happened to me. So amazing, right? These things all happen by the arrangement of Krishna. So he's remembering again the grace of Krishna. And in that purport, Prabhupada makes a beautiful point. Let's read that. He says, yeah, he says, in the warfield, scarcity of water is a well-known fact. Water is rare there, and both the animals and men working strenuously on the warfield constantly require water to quench their thirst. Especially wounded soldiers and generals feel very thirsty at the time of death. And it sometimes happens that simply for want of water, one has to die unavoidably. But such scarcity of water was solved in the battle of Kurukshetra by means of boring the ground. He says, now listen to this. Look at the words Prabhupada uses. He says, by God's grace, water can be very easily obtained from any place if there is facility for boring the ground. The modern system works. So this is Krishna's arrangement that everywhere water is available below the earth also. Just see how wonderfully Krishna has arranged for everyone. You don't live close to a water source. You don't live close to a lake. I mean, hundreds of years back, when there was no pumps and no piping, underground piping system to pump water from Tansa, Vaitarna Lake, which is 100 kilometers away, into Mumbai, how people survived? They had wells, they had bore wells, right? So here Prabhupada is saying the modern system works on the same principle of boring the ground, but modern engineers are still unable to dig immediately where necessary. So if you see borewell banana is a science. So there are these people who are called, what are they called? I forget what they are called, but unka ek particular naam hai. If anyone knows, they can prompt.
Water diviners, probably. Water diviners.
Yeah, water diviners. Hindi mein bhi uska ek naam hai. I forget what the name is, but anyway. So water diviners, they use certain ancient techniques which people see and they feel ye kya bakwas hai, right? But they take a coconut, they place a coconut, they see which direction the coconut is going, and various techniques they use, to meditate, and they realize, okay, this is the spot. And they'll give you 2 spots and you go there. Sometimes after all that, tamasha, you don't get water, right? So Prabhupada is saying modern engineers are still unable to dig immediately wherever necessary. It appears, however, from the history as far back as the days of the Pandavas, that big generals like Arjuna could at once supply water even to the horses, what to speak of men, by drawing water from underneath the hard ground simply by penetrating the stratum with a sharp arrow, a method still unknown to the modern scientists. So Prabhupada never leaves a chance to hit the modern scientists. Well, he has respect for what they have done, but he never leaves a chance. That he is saying that modern scientists, someone like Arjuna is a Kshatriya, uska isse koi lena dena nahi hai, but he knew the science. Kahan arrow marna hai ki pani aaye immediately. And aaj ki tarikh mein borewell 100 feet, 150 feet, 200 feet maar ke bhi pani nahi aata hai. We have destroyed all the water. What do we call the water? What do we call it? Water underground water ko kya bolte hain?
Water table.
Water table. Yeah, thank you. The water table has been destroyed by us completely. Human beings have destroyed the earth. बड़े प्रेम से हमने सब बर्बाद कर दिया है. So anyway, so like this, Prabhupada speaks about, understanding that how insignificant we are, whereas in the previous ages people were so intelligent. Then in 18 to 23, Arjuna realizes, he has spoken about so many different pastimes, remembered Krishna's hand in each of these pastimes, how Krishna saved me. He realizes that mera to kuch power tha hi nahi. He realizes his insignificance in the absence of Krishna. So here again he talks about one pastime. He says that, after I went to Dwarka, already I had got the news. So this Daruka, Daruka is the charioteer of Krishna. So after at Prabhas Kshetra, when all the Yadus came together and killed each other, only Lord Krishna and Lord Balram were remaining. And Daruka, the charioteer of Krishna. These are only 3 people remaining. So then, and of course, Uddhava. So Krishna tells Daruka, you go to Dwarka, the remaining people who are there in Dwarka, please give them the message that after now, since I am no longer there and I am going to leave now, so after me, Dwarka will be overridden by the ocean. Ocean will consume Dwarka. So all of you leave immediately. right? So Daruka goes, and at that time Arjuna is there, so he gets the news that Krishna has left, and Arjuna is devastated. But he is also given a message for Arjuna that all the elderly and the women folk, you bring them to Indraprastha because there's no one to protect them. All the Yadus are dead, so you bring them to Indraprastha. So Arjuna is on bringing many of the wives of Krishna have already given up their body because Krishna has left. They go and they also give up their body, but some are still remaining. So he is bringing back. Arjuna is a great Kshatriya. He is bringing them back to Indraprastha, and somewhere along the way they stop. The Mahabharata is a detailed description. So somewhere on the way they stop, and they are attacked by these robbers who are dressed as cowherds, infidel cowherds. They come and they attack Arjuna, and they start looting. They start looting all the people who are with Arjuna, and they start grabbing the wives of Krishna. And Arjuna is like, hey, who do you think you are? And he picks up his Gandiva, and he's barely able to string the Gandiva. He's not even able to string it properly. वो tight जो होना चाहिए वो भी नहीं कर पा रहा है वो. And he's shooting arrows at them. He's challenging them that stop, I'm going to kill all of you. And he's shooting arrows, and those arrows are falling short. मतलब उन तक पहुंच भी नहीं रहा है. And he is bewildered. He is trying his best to save them. He is not able to. They take away these wives and they go away and they just vanish. And Arjuna is left alone there. He's wondering, ye kya ho gaya? And he realizes. That's when it hits him. He realizes this is all Krishna's arrangement. He realizes that this cannot happen. And the Acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that it is not possible that any ordinary people can even touch the internal energy of the Lord. These queens are the internal energy of the Lord. There's no way. He said it was the Supreme Lord only, Krishna only, who came in the form of these infidel cowherd boys and kidnapped these queens. So the Acharyas explain, but Arjuna realizes that, Baba, I am insignificant. And then in the verse 21 again, Srila Prabhupada, again, very beautiful purport. Let's just meditate on that for a moment. Yeah. So the verse, let's read the translation first. Arjuna is saying that I have the very same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by the same horses, and I use them as the same Arjuna to whom all the kings offered their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them at a moment's notice have become null and void. Right? So, in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, as we have discussed more than once, one should not be puffed up by borrowed plumes. Right? All energies and powers are derived from the Supreme Lord Krishna, and they act as long as he desires and cease to function as soon as he withdraws. All electrical energies are received from the powerhouse, and as soon as the powerhouse stops supplying energy, the bulbs are of no use. In a moment's time, such energies can be generated or withdrawn by the supreme will of the Lord. Now listen to this, okay? Such powerful words Prabhupada uses. He says, material civilization without the blessings of the Lord is child's play only. As long as the parents allow the child to play, it is all right. तो हम सब जो है अपना elaborate जो game खेल रहे हैं, ये मेरी पत्नी, ये मेरा पति, ये मेरे बच्चे, ये मेरे पिता, माता पिता, ये मेरा घर, ये मेरा संसार, ये मेरा करियर, ये सब जो गेम खेल रहे हैं ना सब लोग, it is all child's play, and the parent is watching, and at the point he decides, like sometimes a child goes to someone's house. You would have seen this, you would recall, if you have small children or you had small children at one point, you would recall that they go to someone's house. Like child, we visit someone's house and our child goes along with us, and when they go, they see some toy there and they pick up that toy and they start playing with that toy. And then when it is time to leave, parents say, chalo beta abhi nikalne ka time aa gaya. The child doesn't want to leave. He says, no, I have just started playing with this toy. I'm having great fun. I'm not going to go. parents smile, chal theek hai, aur 2 minute khel, right? And then again they say, okay, chalo, time to go now. And the child says, no, and he starts screaming and kicking, and the parent says, chalo beta, he just snatches that toy away and drags the child and takes him away, right? That's what Prabhupada is saying here, very powerful. He's saying, as soon as the parents withdraw, the child has to stop. Human civilization and all activities thereof must be dovetailed with the supreme blessing of the Lord. Without this blessing, all advancement of human civilization is like a decoration on a dead body. But understand that हम लोग अपने शरीर के लिए, अपने extended शरीर के लिए इतना सब कुछ जो कर रहे हैं, it is all child's play. Death is going to come and take it all away in 1 second. However powerful you may be, however wealthy you may be, it's all going to go away. Utilize your human form of life for understanding who you are. I am this body, I am not this soul. This soul is the servant of Krishna. Who is Krishna? Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of this entire material creation. Not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. He is our eternal loving Father. Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Manasasthani Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karshati. You know, he is our eternal loving Father. We are eternal fragmental parts of him. We are struggling in this material world. Krishna doesn't like it. He wants us to leave this and come back to Godhead. What is the way to do that? Engage in devotional life in this life. At this moment, if you have the facility to chant more, chant more. You have the facility to read more, read more. You have the facility to listen more, listen more. Take shelter. पैसा तो कमाते रहेंगे, होते रहेगा. But don't waste your time. Take shelter of Krishna. Don't waste your time. That's what is the important lesson from this verse, from this purport. Right. So then after this, Arjuna focuses on the instructions of Krishna. He says, you know, that now I am remembering the words that were spoken by the Supreme Lord Krishna. He says, yeah. Now I'm attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. So Prabhupada in this purport speaks elaborately, verse 27, 1.15.27, very important, beautiful verse. Srila Prabhupada speaks about the summary of the Bhagavad Gita, that how this Bhagavad Gita is so important for everyone. Whenever you are in trouble, like Arjuna is right here, he is burning in the fire of separation, remembering all the different pastimes, remembering the mercy that Krishna, how much I was, I was insignificant, but because of your mercy, so many things I was able to do. You gave me the power, and when you decided, you just took it away. My Lord, I understand I'm insignificant, right? And at that moment, he's meditating on the instructions of Gita. Prabhupada is saying, we must also do that. At all times of difficulty or at all times of happiness, also take shelter of Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is also non-different than Krishna. It is Hari Katha, spoken by the Supreme Lord itself. Is very, very potent. Bhagavad Gita is extremely potent. Please read it. Take shelter, right, of the instructions of the Gita. So he's saying, I'm remembering this. And then how he is feeling satisfied? In verse 28, he says, Suta Goswami says, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. So Sridhar Swami, one of the great acharyas from more than 1,000 years ago, he comments on this particular verse. He says that Arjuna over here, he is remembering the instructions of Krishna from the Gita, where Krishna says, Man mana bhav mad bhakto mad yaje mam namaskaru mahame vaishasi satyante prati jane priyosini. Krishna has promised Arjuna, think of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances unto me, and this way you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my friend. So Arjuna is thinking, he's remembering the instructions of of Krishna from the Gita, and he's probably remembering this particular verse where Krishna has told him, "You will come to me." So Arjuna now is thinking, I am in separation from Krishna, but by surrendering to him and by serving him in devotional service, I will definitely go back to him when this body is finished. Right? So, like this, he is remembering the instructions of Krishna. And then after that, Yudhishthir, after hearing this, that Krishna has left, he also immediately, he decides, it is described, Prabhupada describes in the purports there, that Yudhishthir immediately renounces everything. See, this is the characteristic of pure devotees, right? They are not attached to this body. They are not attached to their mission. They are not attached to their belongings, their family. Elaborate. See, Yudhishthir was obviously attached to his brothers, to his mother, to his subjects. He was like a father to his subjects. We discussed in the previous lectures, right? He was like a father, loving father to all his subjects. But the moment he got the news Krishna has left, see, these are the associates of the Lord. तो उनका क्या काम है? जब तक भगवान है तब तक हम यहाँ हैं. भगवान का काम हो गया, हम भी गए. Immediately, Yudhishthir puts Parikshit Maharaj, installs him as the king of the world. He installs the great grandson of Krishna, Vajranab, who was a young boy. He installs him as the king of that side of the Yadus, and then immediately he takes sannyas. Prabhupada describes, he takes sannyas. He goes straight from grihastha to sannyas. He takes sannyas. He wears tattered clothes, and without looking back at his brothers, whether they are coming with him or not, he just leaves. He leaves for the north. In the Mahabharata, there's a very detailed description of what happens, right? But he leaves for the north. And all his brothers, it is described in 45 to 51, verses 45 to 51, all the brothers of Yudhishthir, they also, so in verse 37, let's just read the verse 37. It says in verse 37, Maharaj Yudhishthir was intelligent enough to understand the influence of age of Kali, characterized by increasing avarice, greed, falsehood, cheating, and violence throughout the capital, state, home, and among individuals. So he wisely prepared himself to leave home, and he dressed accordingly. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, let's just read, okay? Yeah. He says, Maharaj Yudhishthir was a great devotee of the Lord, and there was no necessity of his being afraid of the age of Kali. But he preferred to retire from active household life and prepare himself to go back to Godhead. Go back home, back to Godhead. He says the Pandavas are eternal companions of the Lord, and therefore they are more interested in the company of the Lord than anything else. So it is like, भाई मेरा तो भगवान से मतलब है. I am not interested in ये material world में जो चल रहा है ये सब ठीक है. They know that this is all illusory. It's all by the arrangement of the Lord, and Arjuna has just experienced it firsthand, how his powers and everything just vanished in no time. He's not upset that my power went away. He is amazed. He understands. He can see, बापरे, अब तक मैं जो बड़े चीज कर रहा था, it was all by the arrangement of the Lord. So they are not interested in anything else. They want Krishna. That's it. Besides that, being an ideal king, Maharaj Yudhishthir wanted to retire just to set an example for others. He says, as soon as there is some young fellow to look after the household affairs, Prabhupada is saying, one should at once retire from family life to uplift oneself to spiritual realization. One should not rot in the dark well of household life till one is dragged out by the will of Yamaraj. Look at the words, very powerful. Prabhupada is saying, you don't get so engaged and engrossed in your material life. अरे बाबा सब साइंस आ गए तुमको कि भाई अभी मृत्यु is around the corner. Don't waste your time. See, we don't know. Right now, this devotee who passed away from COVID. He was 56. Very young. I mean, By all calculations, he was young. His daughter just got married, right? His daughter got married, and immediately he fell sick, and within a month and a half, and look at the arrangement of Krishna. He was recovering. He apparently COVID was gone, but the complications caused by COVID took away his life, right? So we also don't know. किसको पता है कि डेथ कभी आएगा? किसे पता है? और हम लोग यहाँ अपने इलेबोरेट प्लान्स बना रहे हैं, मैं और एक घर बनाऊंगा, ये करूंगा, वो करूंगा, करो, ठीक है, but understand, like Arjuna's powers were taken away, your powers can also be taken away. Prabhupada said, we are like figs compared to Arjuna. So for us, it is very easy. Material nature can just come, एक second लकवा मार गया, and मुंह से words में नहीं निकल रहे. You can't even speak. You're paralyzed. What will happen, we can't say. Right now, our body is intact. We are able to hear, we are able to speak, we are able to see, we are able to eat prasad. Use this body in Krishna's service. He says one should not rot in the dark well of household life till one is dragged out by the will of Yamaraj. Modern politicians should take lessons from Maharaj Yudhishthir about voluntary retirement from active life and make room for the younger generation. Also, retired old gentlemen should take lessons from him and leave home for spiritual realization before being forcefully dragged away to meet death. Very powerful. So therefore, Yudhishthir Maharaj immediately leaves, and behind him it is described that all the other 4 brothers, they also leave with Yudhishthir. They are also not attached. Right? One may feel कि अरे युधिष्ठिर जा रहा है तो मैं राजा बन जाता हूँ. Bhima could have felt, Arjuna could have felt. None of them are interested. Krishna is not there for whom we are doing all this. He is not there. We want to go back to Godhead and associate with Krishna in the spiritual world. Mame Vaishyasi. Satyam te. Krishna has promised. Yudhishthir is meditating on those instructions. Kunti is meditating. Kunti leaves her body. She goes back to Godhead. Yudhishthir leaves his body, goes back to Godhead. All the 4 remaining Pandavas, they also leave their body, they go back to Godhead. Then in the Bhagavatam, it is described also that Vidur also leaves his body, but he doesn't go back to Godhead because he is a demigod with a specific service as Yamraj. He goes back to the Pitra Loka and continues his service as Yamraj. Then it is described that Draupadi and Subhadra, the 2 wives of Arjuna, they also leave. They see that their 5 husbands have left. They don't lament, अरे मेरे पति चले गए, मेरा क्या होगा, कुछ नहीं. Prabhupada says, Sutta Goswami says, they also leave for the final destination in the self same body. And in this verse, the second last verse of this chapter, verse number 50, one very powerful and very famous, this is a very famous purport by Srila Prabhupada. Let us read this translation, okay? So translation, Draupadi also saw that her husbands, without caring for her, were leaving home. She knew well about Lord Vasudev, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Both Shri and Subhadra became absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and attained the same results as their husbands. In the purport here, Prabhupada is saying, please pay attention. So we may feel, oh, we are in association of devotees, everything will be nice. There'll be someone who will be chanting for us at the time of death. Even if I don't chant, devotees will be there. Prabhupada is saying, when flying an airplane, one cannot take care of other planes. Everyone has to take care of his or her own plane. And if there is danger, no other plane can help another in that condition. Similarly, at the end of life, when one has to go back home, back to Godhead, everyone has to take care of himself without help rendered by another. The help is, however, offered on the ground before flying in space. How? Similarly, the spiritual master, the father, the mother, the relatives, the husband, and others can all render help during one's lifetime. But while crossing the sea, one has to take care of himself and utilize the instructions formerly received. We have heard in the Bhagavad Gita, we have heard in the Srimad Bhagavatam that how antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samad bhavam yati asti na atra sanshaya. Right? Krishna is assured that if you remember me at the time of death, you will come to me without fail. Mam eva ishasi satyam te. Right? Punarjanmana vidyate. So many places in the Gita, Krishna has said, remember me, think of me, you will come to me. These instructions at the time of death, we have to remember. We have to remember that even when we are going back to God, even if we have remembered Krishna at the time of going back to God, the soul passes through this material world, crosses through the 14 planetary systems before going to the spiritual world. And while passing through the planetary systems, he also sees the heavenly planets. He sees the facility of enjoyment there. If he is tempted, he will stay there. There will be rukavat ke liye khed, right? Be very careful. You have to अपना airplane खुद चलाना है अपने को. Remember the instructions given by Guru and Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this way we can perfect our life and we can go back to Godhead. Everyone has to take care of himself. Don't depend on others. Yes, we depend on Vaishnavas throughout our lives. At the end of life, don't be dependent, because death may come when you're with nobody. You're not allowed to be with anybody. Like COVID, people are dying alone. Remember what has been taught to you. Take shelter at every moment of your life. At the time of death, even if you are not in a position to remember Krishna, Krishna will remember you and he will come into your consciousness, right? So the final verse 51, the Falashruti, if those of you who have sincerely and attentively heard this entire narration, there is a beautiful Falashruti. So there are still 47, there were 53 at one point, there are 47 still remaining. So those of you who have heard this, the subject of the departure of the sons of Pandu for the ultimate goal of life, back to Godhead, is fully auspicious and is perfectly pure. Therefore, anyone who hears this narration with devotional faith certainly gains the devotional service of the Lord, the highest perfection of life. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Mahapuran ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments from anybody?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Ravi here.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, question is, this is regarding the last satsang that we did when Gandhari curses Bhagwan Shri Krishna that 36 years, after 36 years, what is the significance of 36 years? Why 36 and why not some other number?
Great question. Even I was wondering that why 36 years? We have to understand that whatever happens, no, it is happening by the arrangement of the Lord only. So even the words, see, Krishna knew that Gandhari is going to curse. He knows, he knows in the Gita, he says, right, that I know past, present, and future. So he knows that Gandhari is going to curse. He knows that because of this curse, the Yadus will kill each other and die. And therefore, he allows it to happen. He goes in front of Gandhari and Gandhari curses him. Now, why 36 years? One can understand that, I'm speculating, but I'm just giving my understanding. It is happening by Krishna's arrangement only. We have to remember what happened at the end of the battle of Mahabharata. Crores of people were killed. Crores. Kings from all over the world were killed. And Dharma had to be re-established. The whole purpose of fighting this battle was to re-establish Dharma. And now Yudhishthira was remaining, and now Dharma had to be re-established again. So that is why probably 36 years that, Yudhishthira, when he started ruling, again, Dharma started getting established. People had great faith in their king. People were following the principles of Dharma. So that is why, 36 years. And the time for Kali Yuga to come was also coming close. So maybe the curse was, corresponding to the entry of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, the actor, had to enter the scene. So unwittingly, unknowingly, she might have cursed him that this will happen in 36 years. But it is arrangement of Krishna only, coinciding with the entry of Kali Yuga, coinciding with the time needed for Dharma to be re-established by Yudhishthir. So on that basis, those words came out of her mouth. A few days back, I was giving a lecture in the temple where I spoke that even the Bhagavatam, which was spoken, it's going to come now in the subsequent chapters, that this Shringi curses Maharaj Parikshit because he's put a snake around his father Shamek Rishi. So he curses Maharaj Parikshit, and he curses him to die in 7 days. But why 7 days? You could have cursed him to die immediately, cursed him to die today, curse him to die tomorrow. Tomorrow you will die. But he curses him to die in 7 days. Why 7 days? So that the Srimad Bhagavatam could be spoken, so that you and I can benefit from it 5,200 years later and perfect our lives and receive this fellowship. Right? So the Lord's ways are inconceivable. We don't understand, why Krishna does certain things. We have to have faith that whatever he does is complete and perfect. I don't know. Does
Thank
that
you,
answer your
Prabhu.
question?
It does. It's all the will of the Lord. I mean,
It's the
there
will
is
of
no other explanation beyond that.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare
Anyone
Krishna.
else? Any other comments or questions?
Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Vandana Mataji.
Prabhuji, you said na, out of the 5 Pandavas, Arjuna was more closer to Krishna. One because of his relation to him, and other he was of the same age.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it is correct or not. Being Krishna, being the personality of Godhead, he is beyond time. It somehow I have read it. He at the time of Mahabharata he was 70 or 80 years of age.
More
Then
than that.
how
More than that.
how come Arjuna and Krishna were of the same age? Kindly throw some light.
So how they were same age, Mataji? In the material world, material calculations, right? That's what we have to understand. Janma karma cha me divyam. His birth, his activities are transcendental. We can't understand. But from the material vision point of view, Krishna appeared around the same time. He was born in Mathura to Devaki and Vasudev around the same time that Arjuna was born to Pandu and Kunti in the forest. So they were the same age from that calculation, right? And it is described that if you calculate the duration of Mahabharata, this war of Mahabharata took place maybe when they were around 125 years old. Okay, they were already quite old. But Krishna is still Nava Yovanam Cha. He's still looking like a 16-year-old boy because his body never ages. He's the Supreme Lord. So from that way, we can understand that they appeared in this earth around the same time, hence they were the same age. But the Supreme Lord is Adi Bhagwan. He is older than the oldest, right? He is the source of all living entities. He is older than the oldest. But in the material world, when he appeared around the same time as Arjuna. So that's how we understand. Does that answer your question, Matji?
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
Yeah, it was a very nice session.
Prabhuji.
Just wanted to tell.
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
thank
go ahead.
Thank you, Matji. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell that we could visualize actually like Lord Krishna getting down on the chariot and then giving water to the horses. It was really nice. And
Hare
just I
Krishna.
wanted to add a few things that
Yeah.
in the Badrinath Dham there is Valley of Flowers, the
There
place
is?
from where the Valley of Flowers,
Yeah.
the place from where the Pandavas went to Godhead. That way is there in
Yeah.
Mana village,
Yes.
and there is origin of river Saraswati.
Yes.
There, like Draupadi was unable to cross the bridge, so Bhima had put a huge rock there so she could cross the bridge. So I just remember that. So
Yeah. It's
is it
actually
right, Ajay?
Badrinath is a very difficult place to go. I have
It's
somehow
very
been
difficult,
fortunate to go there. Very beautiful.
yeah, very beautiful. And Valley of Floods is very difficult. So
Actually, in the
is
Mahabharata, there's a detailed description given. Srimad Bhagavatam is very brief. Just gives,
okay.
That they remembered Krishna and they went back to Godhead. Mahabharata is a more detailed description of how this happened. You know
Okay.
that what they first go towards the heavenly planets through this path. They go to the heavenly planets, and there Yudhishthir gets bewildered, and finally he sees Krishna. And then the Mahabharata ends there. That he sees Krishna, and Krishna smiles at him and says, "Okay, now you come back with me to Godhead." So like that. Yeah.
Even that way is so difficult. The origin of river Saraswati, where that
Yes.
place is there. It's very difficult to reach there, but it's very
Yes.
beautiful.
Hare Krishna.
And thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Anybody
Krishna
else?
Prabhuji.
Yes,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Achyuta, who's Achyuta?
Prabhuji,
Yes.
small doubt, Prabhuji. When Krishna met Pandavas for the first time, Prabhuji,
Okay, when he met, I think the first time he meets, Swayamvar, no? The Swayamvar of Draupadi. That's when he meets him for the first time. I'm also not very sure, but I think it is a Swayamvar. That's correct.
thank you.
Okay,
Hare Krishna,
Ishwar Prabhu, you're
Prabhuji.
saying something. Yeah.
Yeah. The title of this chapter is "The Pandavas Died Timely," and in the beginning, when you started, you had the doubt whether we could finish this or not. I wish this chapter also continued next week also. There was no need for retiring it this week itself. But nevertheless, it was wonderful lecture. It was as if you're all part of the pastimes that you were able to beautifully relate. The last verse, I have a this particular clarification here. Therefore, anyone who hears this narration with devotional faith certainly gains the devotional service of the Lord, the highest perfection of life. Our devotional faith, being devotees, we may understand a little bit. There could be someone here on this call that may require a little bit of a clarification on this devotional faith. If you can kindly explain, it will be great.
Thank you, Boo. So a nice, thoughtful question. A devotional faith is basically about having faith. Actually, it's a good question. Even I'm also now wondering. Devotional faith is basically faith that Krishna is the supreme personality of God, right? And that I am the spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and it is my my duty to serve him with the best of my ability. And you may not have full understanding of Krishna and your personal relationship with Krishna, but with faith कि नहीं, गुरु ने बोला है, आचार्य ने बोला है, तो सही होगा. Let me do it, right? So acting on the path of devotion with faith is what I understand as devotional faith. So acting on the process of bhakti, whatever process has been given to us, Ado, Shraddha, Sadhu, Sang, Bhajana, Kriya, Anartha, Nivriti, Nishtha, that process, all the 9 processes of devotional service, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, those activities you are doing without full taste, without full conviction, you are doing it with faith. That is devotional.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for that wonderful, faithful answer that you gave.
Hare Krishna. So I think we'll stop here. It is way past time. Let us do Kirtan for a few minutes, and then we can conclude with the announcements by our Brahme Prabhu. Hare Krishna.